For this video, let's try to learn how to solve linear equations in one variable. A linear equation, just like this one, is just a type of equation wherein the highest exponent in the equation is just 1, and also there's only one variable. Solving a linear equation means finding the value of that variable x, or any variable of that equation, that will make the whole equation true. So how do you solve a linear equation? Well, it's easy. Just follow these steps. Now remember, you have to follow the steps in order. However, you can skip a step if it doesn't apply to the problem. So our first example, we have here this equation, and we will solve for x. Now, we just need to follow the steps. Step number 1 is to remove the parentheses. And as you can see in our equation, we have this parentheses, so we have to remove that. And we will use the so-called distributive property. All right, and here's how you do the distributive property. So we just use the number outside and distribute that number to each number inside the parentheses. All right, so we just distribute this number to each number inside the parentheses, and the operation will be multiplication. Just multiply them. So the first pair will be -5 multiplied to 2, which is -10x. Remember, there's an x, so it should be -10x. And then -5 times a +1 is a -5. Okay, so we have removed the parentheses, and then we just bring down the other numbers. So we have -2x minus 2 equals 17. All right, so that's step 1. Next, step 2. Step 2 is about gathering all the variable terms on the left side and all the constant term on the right side. Now, the variable terms are just the terms with the variable. You see these variables, so they should be on the left side, and the constant terms are the numbers without the variables. So you see this constant, they are constant. We just gather them on the right side. All right, so let's begin with the variable terms. So we have these two variables, and you see they're already on the left side. So if they're on the right spot already, we just bring it down. So we have -10x, and then bring down -2x. Okay, and then we put equal, because we will put all the constant term on the right side. Now let's begin with the 17. The 17 is already in the correct spot, so we just bring it down. We just bring it down. All right, now we see that there's a -5. If there's a sign in front of it, it should be included. Okay, if they have here -5 and we want it to go to the other side, now there's a so-called transpose. If we transpose a number, meaning we move that number across, crossing the equal sign or going to the other side, it should change in sign. Take note, if a number will go to the other side, it should change in sign. So from -5, if we move it to the other side, it becomes a +5. Okay, same as with this number, this is also constant. If we move it to the other side, it should also become a +2. All right, so now we gathered all the variables and all the constant on each side. We now simplify. When you say simplify, we just combine them. So you see here you have -10 minus 2. So -10 minus is -12x. Don't forget there's an x, and then equals, we just add all of these numbers, 17 plus 5 plus 2, which is 24. So that completes our step number 2. Now let's proceed to step number 3. Step number 3 is we focus on the left side. We undo the multiplication or division. So you see here, -12 is being multiplied to x. So we do the reverse of multiplication. Reverse of multiplication is division. So we just divide by the same number. Okay, we just focus on the left. We divide by the same number. But to make this equal, we should also divide by whatever we used here, which is -12. Okay, now we get rid of this because they're the same. That's cancel. So now what is x? That's 24 divided by -12. It will give you a -2. So the answer is -2. All right, let's now do our second example. So we will solve for y in here in this equation. So don't forget, again, step number one is remove this parenthesis if there is a parenthesis. So we can do that by doing the distribution. So just distribute the number outside to each number inside the parenthesis and do the multiplication. So 2 times 2 is 4. Don't forget, there's a y, so 4y. And then 2 times negative 3. If you put this in your calculator, just put 2 and then times negative 3. That's negative 6. All right, so for this part, that's step one, remove the parentheses, and we just bring down the other numbers. All right, step two, let's now go to step two. In step two, we want the variables, those with variables, to stay on the left. So in here, you see there's only one term with the variable, so and it's already in the left, so we just bring it down or write it down here. For y, we don't need to move to change anything because it's already in the correct spot. And then we put equals. And then the constant terms, the terms without a variable, must be gathered in the right side. All right. So for 18, it's already in the correct spot. So just bring it down. Don't change anything because it's already in the correct spot. But for negative 6, we want it to go to the other side. And if you do that, it should change in sign. So from negative, it should be a positive 6. We call that transposition. All right. And then after gathering the variables and the constant term on each side, we simplify them. Since this part is only by itself, so we just bring it down. And then we add this 18 plus 6, that's 24. So that's step number 2. Now we go to step number 3. Step number 3, since we have this multiplication, we now do the division, divide by the same number. We just focus on the left side. But we divide 4 to both sides. All right. Now this 2 will be crossed out. So this leaves you y equals 24 divided by 4. That's equal to 6. So the value of y is equal to 6. Now let's go to our third example. So we have this equation and we will solve for x. So we follow the steps again. Number 1 is remove the parentheses. But as you can see, there's no parentheses. So that step doesn't apply in here. So we just skip that step. Then we proceed to step number 2. Step number 2 is gather the variables to the left side. So you look, the variable is on the right. We want to move it to the left side. So once it crosses the equal sign, it should change in sign. So right now it's a positive, and if it crosses, it becomes a negative 10, and then don't forget the x. All right, that's the only variable. So that's the only thing on in the left side. Then we put equals. These two are the constant term, and we want them on the right side. All right, so let's begin with negative 44 because it's already in the correct spot. We just bring it down. We don't do anything. Okay. But then for 76, if we move it to the other side, a positive will become a negative 76. All right. Now, after gathering the variables and constants, we combine them. So this is by itself, so we just bring it down. And then this, negative 44 plus or minus 76, that's equal to negative 120. Okay. That's step number 2. All right. Now, step number 3 is focus on the left side. And because this is multiplication, we will divide by the same number here, which is, you see, it's negative 10. But we have to do it also on the other side to make it balance. So a negative 10 over negative 10 is crossed out. So you have x in here, negative 120 by negative 10. That's a positive 12. So x is positive 12. Now we are down to our last example. So we have x over 9 equals 10. We still follow the steps. Step 1 is parentheses, but we don't have parentheses, so we just skip step 1. Step 2 is gather the variables on the left side. As you can see, the variable is already on the left. And then gather the constant term on the right side. Now, the 10 is already on the right, but this number 9 here we cannot do transpose the 9 to the other side because it's attached to x, okay? You cannot do that. So that means in step 2, the variables is already in the right spot, and then the constant term is already in the right spot, so we skip step number 2. And now we go to step number 3. In step number 3, we focus on the left side, and then we undo the division or multiplication. As of now, you see we have a division. So the opposite of division is multiplication. So we just put this times and then 9 by the same number. Times 9 on the left, and we have to do times 9 also on the right. So if you do that, this 2 will cross out, and then you have x equals 10 times 9 is 90. So x equals 90. So you see in this example, we only used step number 3. So the steps, you have to follow it in order, but you can skip a step if it doesn't apply to the problem.